I'd like the motion to open the zoning appeals room. Most. Second. And finish. Okay, we're good. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to do, I did talk to the mayor. There's no updates or anything like that. I spoke to him earlier. See, it's not like I spoke to him yesterday. There's nothing new coming on. Is there any people in the village?
Just a reminder, double check your hours, get it by the end of December, 4 hours each, so most of you are close, but.
Okay, all right. You want to approve the meetings? A motion to approve the minutes, October 8th. Okay, vote. Aye, okay. Everyone thinks they're good? Okay, good, all right.
Second? Yeah.
First, second.
Okay, yep, thank you.
All right. All right, so. New application, actually, let's do the, yeah, you know. So you're here for the alcohol sales?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, and Terry, I know you're there, and I know you guys are, okay. So, yeah, I just want to talk to us about it. Yeah, it's that's pizza.
Yeah, Alex and I determined there's 2 locations, the Mountain Laurel School at 16 City Chestnut and the synagogue of ancient. Are the 2 locations within that.
Okay, hi.
Hi, Rose Grant. So, getting nervous being around now.
That's okay, don't be nervous.
Okay. So I'm opening my restaurant at 52 Main Street. I was the previous owner for the Jamaica Choice. So, what happened is, COVID happened and I decided to close. And, now I wanted to pick up back where I left off. So, I wanted to be able to do the same things that I was doing, but better. And New Falls, it's a fit. I wouldn't look for any place else. I wasn't looking for anywhere else besides New Falls. Finally, I got 52 Main Street and was looking to open with the benefit of selling alcohol to my clientele, you know, under strict legal guidelines. So not as open as before, but you know, with more restrictions. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any like plans on what you're gonna do to the restaurant and what it's gonna look like and all that kind of stuff?
I didn't bring any pictures, but I have pictures in my phone if you wanted to see just a quick little layout.
Yeah, sure.
Is this application to operate as a bar or is this application?
Well, it's in front of the planning board to operate as a bar. It's here because of a new occupant. And the alcohol sales within 500 feet of the.
But at the restaurant, you have alcohol sale.
Yeah, she wants to stay open past the,
Yeah, it's.
was it midnight?
As we're going, I
It
didn't.
doesn't-
Yeah, it's a bar / tavern, yeah, she's
Yeah.
applying for.
And so there wouldn't be a
So
division,
then-
like a physical divider between the bar and the
It's,
restaurant area,
there is an island in
Right.
the middle.
but it's free flowing.
Yeah.
So that's a planning board issue, is it planning?
Yeah, it's also in front of the planning board at the same time.
So is it in terms of determining whether they can operate as a bar
Yeah, sorry. No,
or a restaurant, is that?
Yeah, so that's a special use in front of the planning board. And because her proposal is to stay open past midnight, that triggered the need to come here as well. So it's in front of both boards simultaneously.
So is it a bar or a bar restaurant?
It's a full restaurant with a bar.
But because she wants to stay open past midnight, it gets classified as a bar by us because of this staying past midnight.
Do we have, so P&G's is classified as a bar?
Probably, you know.
It's still,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Anybody that, it doesn't
I
matter.
thought we only had one bar, but it was just Snugs.
No, anybody who wants to remain open past midnight is classified as a bar slash tavern. They can be a restaurant as well, but it's the code. The midnight is the trigger. You can sell alcohol if you are closing before midnight, but if you wanna stay open after midnight.
Well, that's not the 500 feet thing doesn't have anything to do with time, right?
No, but I'm just asking if this.
Oh, actually, no, that's
We're,
correct.
we're being asked about 500 feet.
Right,
not
so you're being asked for it's section 212-41D.
Yeah, that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to see what, if this was operating as a restaurant or a bar, and then, you know, if that is, or if we're granting, if our permitting the use or the sale of alcohol is for the restaurant part or for the bar part, that's, I'm just trying to.
So that's what I asked you, as far as the layout goes, is open flow between the two.
Well, no, the idea is, so the way it works in the village is that a restaurant cannot sell alcohol, it has to be closed by midnight. If you're considered a bar, then you can stay open later and you can sell alcohol, so.
So it was classified by the code officer as a restaurant, bar slash tavern. So. Because, and that was because of the after midnight, and you're correct, Cody, I'm sorry, I'm still learning the
Right.
code thing
Yeah.
myself, so.
What we're being asked about is.
Yeah, bar
alcohol.
tavern uses in B2 districts,
The midnight thing,
they have to be located, they can't be located, yeah. So I'm guessing even a restaurant that was selling alcohol
right,
within 500 feet would also have to.
yeah, we've had, yeah.
Yeah.
If they want to, yeah, it's the 500 feet, not what it's. On that question though, will you have, if you're open till past midnight, are you intending on having bar operational hours post food?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, like after food closes, so just
No,
the whole time that the bars open will also be serving food, so you'll be serving food till 2 AM or whatever the case may be.
mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah, see, this is so weird because
We've talked about this, how.
this is, so this is clunky and this is one of the things that I don't like. So. I wanna see what the facility looks like. Because I'm always, like, we've approved a bunch of these and then the plans change.
But, or
Or it doesn't happen or it goes away or
the
whatever.
last one we moved down in the same shoes of business. Yeah,
Which one was that?
it's Scurry Chapel.
Oh, yeah, said that one way.
I believe.
But do you know the one that was the old, laundromat?
Mhm.
That they, like, what they came out, what we saw in the,
Right,
what we saw in the beginning wasn't what it looks like now. So I'm always like,
I'm curious what. How much does that play into just like the energy of it, or like the flow of it, or for the alcohol within 500 feet of a.
yeah, I mean, that's the crux of it. It's like, we're just being asked for that one thing. I just don't want. Like, I'm worried about like, this good tech. In downtown. You know, so, I know,
No,
the size is, it's a weird size, it's not huge, but it's not small either, that's my only concern.
Like if there's gonna be one, right on Main Street, it's pretty good.
It's partially because of the change in ownership.
Yes, we're discussing.
Because when
Yeah.
Best Pizza sold alcohol as well.
Right,
Because there's a new owner coming in,
yeah, I mean, we've done this.
that's what triggers it.
So
Arrow.
we're not actually approving, we're not approving booze, we're just approving alcohol sales.
You're approving. It says bar tavern uses in the B2 district shall meet the following requirements. Such uses shall not be located within 500 feet of schools or churches. So what you're doing is you're giving an area variance to allow. The sales of alcohol within 500 feet. of
So this would be the, so you would have to give the same one, whether it was beer or.
Any alcohol.
You know.
And she also will have to get from the
And
New
that,
York State,
Yeah,
which
okay.
does not involve us at all.
when we ran into this before too, and we've touched base on things that, like surrounding restaurants that are. Sometimes you have to pass by a bar to get to
Yeah,
these places.
Yeah.
And I like to take that into consideration, if I'm standing in the Best Pizza location, I have to pass 3 bars to get to Mountain Laurel. You know?
Yeah.
like, it depending on which way I go, I'm passing bar.
Pass, to get to the synagogue, you go about pass even more.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my point,
Yeah,
that
no,
area
yeah.
has became a spot that,
Okay, all right, no, I'm just, this isn't about you, by the way, I'm sorry, don't freak out. Don't freak out,
This,
okay?
this
This
is
is
a
more
more
like
function
me.
of the zoning code that
Yeah.
requires it.
It's just,
Right.
I'm
that-
being asked to make a decision on something I can't see, which always bothers me, but anyway, okay, yeah, all right. I'm not too upset.
I stand by my same thing, that if I have to
There's some
pass.
alcohol sales within arguably even less reasonable places, I have no conflictions.
Yeah.
I think we would voice that.
Yeah.
It's just,
And I really like Oxtel, so I think that's gonna push me over the edge right there.
it's one of the great
Really
COVID laws. Let's bring this back around.
I actually, well, you got out of the lease, your timing's good.
I'm telling you, it was bad. My ex-husband got sick and, I kind of let family members started to run a place. My daily sales were like $85, so it's not happening, you know, you'll never make your rent,
No,
you know.
no. It's,
It's a good thing, cause I like that pizza.
It's a cool location, yeah.
I was planning on doing, what was it, Chestnuts, 88 North Chestnut? But then this came out
Right.
and the realtors are like, oh, this is what we want here.
Yeah.
Oh, so,
all right, yeah, I'm not, do you guys have any other questions or anything to add? No, you all good, okay.
So just, it's
So set a public hearing.
public hearing for next month?
Okay, so the way this is gonna work, we're gonna set a public hearing,
Mhm.
this is the intro.
Okay.
The public hearing, and, we will go through the 4 factors of whether it's bad and good and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
But at the end of that meeting, you'll have a really good idea, we'll vote, and you'll have a really good idea of what's going on, and then you can proceed with what you're doing.
We still have to go to the
So,
state for.
yeah, because they were asking, I think I have to reach out back to them to want to let them know what the outcome of this meeting is.
Right, and so we are required to have a public hearing and you'll be required to post everything, so
Oh.
make sure all of that is done to minus.
All right.
So the notices that you just had to do for the planning
I'll
board,
have
you'll have to do similar for this board.
Okay,
Okay,
And yeah, in this case, it shouldn't be too much speed,
So
so.
like, I just have a question, the planning board is going to discuss and issue a special use permit for staying open past midnight.
Correct.
So all we're considering then at the next public hearing is just the sale of alcohol and if I were to the school.
Correct.
And they'll decide whether this is gonna be classified as a bar slash
And she wouldn't,
restaurant or just a restaurant.
she wouldn't have had to come to the planning board if she didn't want to stay open past midnight,
Right.
because the building was already approved as a
That's
restaurant.
why, that's one of, yes, that's kind
So
of
it's there for special use only because of the staying open.
past midnight.
So there's 2 additional steps, one of them is us because it's 500 feet from the school and church, and then one is because.
And that's because it's a new owner from the previous business. So they're 2 different approvals for 2 different reasons.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
So that'll be December 10th.
Okay.
Somebody want to make a motion for that?
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to have a public hearing for, the, 52 Main Street for the alcohol sales near church or school. Motion. Second. Okay, all right, we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Okay, so the side yard setback. That's the one on Beacon Street, we had a vote on that already, so we guys read it, when I read it, it looked fine. Okay, do we have to vote on that, or do we just have to, or do I just sign and approve it?
If everybody, David, they don't need to vote on the written decision, correct?
Yeah, we have to adopt the decision.
Okay,
Okay, all right, so I motion to adopt the written decision on Huguenot Street for the side yard setback.
Motion.
Second, okay, you need to vote by one at a time.
you can do it as
Okay.
a.
Everybody, all in favor, raise your hand, aye, okay, so we got 4 is that, good. Okay, that's good, okay. So the next one,
And Sean, if you, when you're done tonight, we can have you
Yes.
sign this. Thank you.
all right, so now the number 4, so the. Yeah, so we got that, yeah. All right, never mind.
What's on?
So we voted on $290 then.
Well, one.
Okay, all right.
Right.
Okay, so let's go to 7 Prospect Street. All right, so the last time we were here. We made.
We. Vote on whether we want it's in line with our, the regular.
Yeah, and I just lost my favorite. I don't know, there's-
Do you need another copy? Did I have?
What's the yours?
Yeah.
You need another copy? I have it.
I don't want that. Okay, so the last time we had this, we discussed and voted on. We discussed and voted on the statute of limitations. Okay. All right, so. Everyone read that, everyone's good with that one, okay, all right, so we did not vote on. 2,
Do we need to vote on accepting the written on that, or do you want us to? do
Why
it?
don't you wait until, if we go to number 3, you'll vote to accept the written on both 1 and 3.
Right.
okay, all right.
We did vote on number 3 on the suspension. We did take a vote on.
We did, okay.
And that's all, and it's in the minutes.
It's in the minutes,
Yeah.
okay, all right,
So those who vote, for those, you just gotta decide whether the text is what means, whether you're satisfied with the text. Number 2, I think, a decision.
number 2, we didn't, okay. So, all right, so I'm gonna open up a discussion here on whether or not the ZBA. Is going to. Comply, if we're gonna look at fire and buildings, look at fire codes and building codes. So. Anyone wanna talk about this at all? Number 2? Oh, great, okay,
You want me just to give you a quick introduction to that?
yeah, that would be great,
Okay.
thank you.
The village has essentially, answered the appeal. In this regard, with what we sometimes call in law a motion to dismiss on jurisdictional grounds. And that gets heard before you actually get into the actual issue that's being appealed, whether there's a violation of the fire code. And the argument is that the state has set up a separate board to deal with appeals from a building permit relating to the fire code or the other state codes, right? The building code, for example. So that board exists, it's in the Department of State. The question is whether this board also has jurisdiction over those questions. And what the guidance from the state says is that this board has jurisdiction over those questions if the village code gives it to you. Like the village code gives you jurisdiction to handle zoning appeals. The question is whether you can also handle an appeal from a building permit that's based in the fire code. And the state says you can, as long as the law says you can. Now, that leads us into a parsing of what the code says. The code says you have jurisdiction over appeals that are based on the zoning code, but the argument is that the zoning code, in one of its sections, incorporates by reference the fire code. Incorporation by reference would be a type of thing where if the planning board issues a site plan approval, it may say something like, you need to have a stormwater collection pond that complies with the Speedies program and clean water. So they're incorporating those clean water provisions into the site plan approval as a condition. That's called incorporation by reference. It's something, another code, we're gonna put it into this document. The question is whether the Village of New Paltz Code, zoning code, chapter 212, incorporates by reference the fire codes to the point where it becomes essentially an appeal under the zoning code, because it's literally in the zoning code because they're referring to another document. Now, there's a case, and the village argued this, that basically says you can't do that, and the case is pretty close to what we're at here, very similar situation, except there are some minor factual differences. One of which is that in that other case, the Yonkers case, the code actually says anything under the building code gets referred to that other body, so it says it pretty directly. Our code is fairly silent on it, but it does have that incorporation by reference. And so the question before this board is whether that incorporation by reference in the zoning code, incorporating the fire code, is sufficient to allow you to hear the appeal, given the fact that your appellate authority is basically zoning oriented. That's the question for you. We can get into some more details on that, and that's probably complicated enough, but that's a bit the question for the board.
So back in, I think it was in October, in our September meeting, excuse me, there was some documentation that was provided to us as the building department supply statement, and there was a building standards code. It was a document on code outreach, and one of the things we were discussing back at that meeting, it reads in there that appeals of an order of determination, administrative official charged to enforce, according to enforcing from code can be heard by regional boards or any entity granted such authority by local ordinance.
Exactly.
And we did not resolve that question. Are we granted that?
Exactly. So the question, I mean, the regional board is at the Department of State thing. The question for us is whether we're an entity that has been granted this authority under the village code. And in general, the village code doesn't say that. It says you guys can do an appeal from the zoning code. But the argument that the village is making, the argument that the appellant is making is that there's an incorporation by reference in the zoning code that brings in those other codes. And so the question is that alleged incorporation by reference? It's not, we should probably read it and get familiar with it so you know what it is. But the question is that sufficient to give you the authority to hear an appeal under the fire code? That's the only question you need to decide right now. And if I recall, the actual provision in the zoning code was 212-63C. I can easily pull it up and read it to you, or maybe.
Yeah, that's possible.
So that's the provision that the appellant was arguing basically incorporates the fire code by reference into the zoning code. And I can pull it up if you wish right now.
It's actually, David, you quoted it in your decision too, at the bottom of page 4.
Right, it's indented, right?
Yeah. That's,
And
Oh, no,
it's not the entire section, but it's part of the section.
here's what, I'll just read it so that everyone knows we're literally on the same page. It's paragraph C of 212-63, which is entitled building permits, but it's in the zoning code. 212, as you know, is the zoning code, chapter 212. So 212-63, which refers to building permits. And by the way, what's strange here is that the building section of the code is also going to have authorization of building permits, but this is in the zoning code. Here's what it says. It shall be the duty of the building inspector to issue the proper permits, meaning here a building permit, provided he is satisfied that the structure, building, sign, parking area, and the proposed use conform with all requirements of this chapter, meaning the zoning code, chapter 12, the state building construction code, and all other applicable provisions of the Village of New Paltz Municipal Code that may apply. So what this specifically says in English is that in issuing a building permit, the building inspector must ensure that the permit complies with the zoning code and complies with the state building and construction code. That is the provision at issue here. So the question for you guys is whether that delegation and assignment of authority to the building inspector to issue permits when there's compliance with the zoning code and the building code, because that's in the zoning section, whether that's enough to give you appellate authorities over a building issue when you only have really appellate authority over the zoning. Whether this is the type of writing that's referred to in that state guidance that assigns you that responsibility. That's the question before you now. while you're considering that, and again, there's a case that goes the other way, but there's a way to distinguish it. I want you to think about the, what I see as the policies behind one way or the other. One policy is that the ZBA shouldn't be deciding fire code issues. Because there's other agencies of expertise, the DOS has set up this panel which has a certain type of person on it. The problem with that logic though is that DOS itself says you can decide it as long as the village says you can. So it's not, the idea that we can never touch the fire code is not really where the state is. They just want to know that you have the authority. The reason to hear it is what I'll call convenience and service. You're sitting right now, basically, right in the village, right in the heart of the village. The appellant can walk down here. His witnesses who came down here a couple of months ago can walk down here. They vote for you directly. You're here, and it's a convenience to them. It doesn't mean he doesn't have to apply to the state and maybe go to a meeting wherever they're going to hold a meeting in Kingston, et cetera. So there's a certain idea that's inherent in what we're doing, that there's local home rule and that this can be decided in the village, that you provide this service to them. That would be the reason to hear it and to not send them up to some other entity that's somewhere else. And that frankly, most of us haven't heard of each other.
Right,
So those.
but then it would be brought to people who have experience and expertise in those specific codes.
Yes,
So it's
that's the regulation.
for us.
It's like,
correct,
it's like,
for them.
you may know, Mike, you may know, but the panel's gonna have on it like a planning director from the county or something like that, and people that are more specialized in those things. than you are.
So whether or not this is what anyone wants to hear, from where I'm standing, it seems unfair to both parties, including the opponent, because we're not gonna hold the expertise to make the decision on
If that becomes your driving force, then you can easily say, because the village code doesn't specifically tell you to do it, you're gonna interpret it narrowly.
I want the opponent to get a decision made from someone who has expertise in the matter, not me.
Well, he's here asking you to make the decision.
I know, and this is my opinion on how I'm determining this, is that I think it would be unfair for me to tell the appellant that I could make a decision one way or another, when I believe that the person making this decision should have expertise and experience in.
And remember what the issue was, that is under the fire code, was a position of that staircase, right? That
Right.
was going to a bedroom,
Yeah,
so
Yeah, but but the problem is the staircase is not going through a bedroom.
well, before you
Yeah.
get to.
Yeah, this is, so we're like arguing about something.
whether or not they get argued.
Yeah,
I'm gonna.
this is my, okay, so my take is, like, I don't mind listening to things. Like, I could see why we'd wanna listen to people here, like, to be relieved. Because if it's something obvious and easy, we should look at it. But we could always reserve the right to be like, I don't know the difference between 3/8 and 5/8 sheetrock in terms of how effective that's gonna be as a fire break. That seems like an engineer should make that decision. So is this the kind of thing that we would look at case by case?
That's a very, very good
I would
question,
say
because when you do look at it case by case, this doesn't appear to be like, an issue of fire safety, it appears to be more an issue of privacy, because they're going to a bedroom, right?
They're not, but that's the
That's
thing,
the-
the plans are wrong, so it's not, this is what's so weird, is that like the whole. The stairs are in the kitchen, they're not, it's not there, and so,
But before you get to that,
before we get there.
what, and this
We
is a
have
hard,
to decide
this,
if we want it.
this is a hard thing to understand, because there may be times when you think that an argument is correct or obviously not correct, but jurisdictional issues can cut short cut short your consideration. For instance, under the statute of limitations, if it was too late, no matter what your opinion is, you just don't have the jurisdiction to
Right.
decide it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what lawyers do this a lot, and very often people that are not lawyers get very frustrated because there's issues here you can grab, and we'll say, no, not so fast, you gotta make sure you jump through all these procedural hoops, and if you don't, then it doesn't matter what the real right and wrong is, you don't have that authority. Lawyers are and board probably should be very conscious of what authority you have. And so the question to you guys tonight is whether the code gives you the authority even to get to Sean's observation. And how clear a delegation do you want? because like I said, this is an incorporation by reference, some people would doubt that it's meaningful. Others may say, I never wanna touch the fire code, it's just, even if this is a staircase going to a bedroom and it's a privacy issue, there's other people that are too smart for that, and this can go either way. Mistakenly, I drafted the decision, anticipating that you would, not want to exercise jurisdiction, but I will tell you that the case in Yonkers can be distinguished on some factors, including the fact that the Yonkers code specifically tells people, go to the state, take it somewhere else, and the judge noted that, so we can distinguish it on that basis, which means that there's no, operative law here, which means you're functionally deciding whether your code gives you this authority, and if you do decide that it does, Sean, it's gonna be for all situations. The next person comes in, you have the authority, you decide this gives you that authority, and the next person can be coming in complaining about whether it's 3/8 of an inch or 5/8 of an inch in terms of the drywall or whatever.
I think that in this situation, it might be something that we could probably determine, but in these situations as a whole. I think that it's dangerous for us to start making these decisions.
I don't think incorporation by reference, I agree, I don't think incorporation by reference value gives us. The ability to interpret the fire code as non-experts.
Yeah, I mean, this would be like, imagine it wasn't fire code, imagine it was structural. So we're like looking at like, I would be very hesitant to be like. If someone said, oh, I only want to use 2x6 walls to hold up the house, and I'd be like, that doesn't look strong enough to me. Like, I don't think we should be making that decision.
Right, so we could look at a chart. And
Yeah.
we could figure out the strength, but we
So we
should,
shouldn't be doing it.
and that's where,
Like that, we should be saying to,
And that's risky for, like,
Yeah.
that conversation is risky because of. If you hold some expertise, like you understand where. A stairway is.
Well, understand,
It's separate,
you have the authority, if you wish, to consult with an engineer, to set up an escrow
but this other group already exists that does this
They do.
and has experience doing it.
There are certain personnel, I think, that the
Right.
panel has to have, and Mike, you may know off the top of your head, I don't.
It's established to handle.
Might be the building inspector, might be a planning type
The
of.
state sets up regional, what I do know about these, they set up regional commissions, it's not like one for all of New York State.
Right,
There's probably
One
I don't think-
a Hudson Valley or a
Right.
southern part of the state.
and honestly, that, the convenience aspect, I understand we're a small community and everything, but the convenience aspect. Is completely wiped away by the experience of the correct answer.
yeah, and
But-
you know, what?
Experience of getting to a correct answer through the resources that they have, and we don't.
So I'm thinking Tony Perry and all of his witnesses, maybe, I'm not sure what the meeting is, but then they have to go to a meeting in Newburgh or something like that, or Kingston.
Honestly, like, maybe I should feel better for this, but that is not my problem.
I'm just letting you know.
How do you guys feel?
It doesn't seem our relative fire code, we're not experts, and it's a dangerous precedent to set that we can, the fire code, we can interpret. Whether or not things are justice, we are not experts, and these boards are set up with requirements of who has to be on them. And included among them can be fire chiefs and zoning and fire experts. From different types of municipalities, town, city and village.
Okay. I'd have to look up the exact requirements to join.
You know, regional board is comprised of registered architects, a professional engineer, a person with a background in building code enforcement, a person with a background in fire prevention pursuant to 19 NYCRR. They have the authority to sustain, reverse, modify, and whole or in part such order and determination. There's stuff.
Yeah, alright, so that's, to go to sum this up. We had this, remember the old age home that only wanted one entrance? And then they only wanted one, and then we were gonna make it wider, and the guy came in and I was like, no way.
Yeah,
I think we're in that situation where we have to just let the experts.
and that was tricky because we were able to discuss whether or not we thought that was safe for fire entrance and exit emergencies, but because they were asking to not do it the way the code was written. You know, the code said they had to,
You were considering a variance?
yeah, they were asking. I don't think we're.
It was the hardest snow I've ever given in my life.
I will find out. same guidance that says that you guys can exercise jurisdiction over an appeal as long as the village has provided for it. Also says under no circumstances do you have jurisdiction over a variance on the fire code. If
Right.
get a variance on the fire code, like we don't have to do
No.
this thing.
So the way they were writing, the way it was written, if I remember correctly, is it wasn't a variance on the fire code, it was a variance on the parking entry. That toyed with the states of fire code.
Oh, is it, oh, yeah,
Because it
yeah.
has to have
So
two,
it's a zone, it's fundamentally a zoning provision,
right,
but then you have jurisdiction.
yeah, and.
Yeah, we said no so hard as.
But I guess what I'm trying to separate in my mind is that in that case, I did think about, oh, it's an elderly home, or it's going to be elderly. People's homes, and there's going to be emergency in and out kind of.
Because you consider the 5 factors, you will look in public safety.
Right, so we were taking into consideration things of that, but because what they were asking to do was. It said you have to do this to be safe according to our code, and they were asking us specifically to not.
And the irony here is that although the provision that, the actual law rule at issue is under the fire code, you can also make the observation that this is not strict, this particular case is not really a matter of public safety. It's really not whether somebody in a bedroom has the requisite level of privacy that we would expect. It's not, the way I look at it is.
Which makes it feel way less, which also makes it feel like it's not something that we should really be.
The privacy issue,
Yeah, I mean. Yeah.
again, it's up to you. I did write it up that you would not have jurisdiction, but obviously you have a choice. If you, we didn't vote on that, that's nothing, so it's before you now.
And I guess, I think everybody's pretty clear, but just in tidiness of situations, I'm just gonna throw out my opinion on this is that we do not and should not have jurisdiction to discuss this.
If the board is satisfied, somebody can make a motion to decide that issue the way that you want.
I don't wanna cut other discussion, I was just wanted to make it super clear, and then that way we don't have to.
I second that decision on Thursday.
I would agree, I mean, I'm not a subject matter expert in building fire code, so I really. I just have a difficult time with the idea that we're going to. You probably make a ruling on this and we're not subject matter experts, and the thing about that, and they list what regional, who a regional board is comprised of, and. None of those people, so.
So that's the thing, that the fact that is giving a discomfort to your thought process.
Well, and it's not explicitly, it's being implied that this authority is giving us, it's not expressly
Right.
written in the code,
So we literally have to step on a gray line
You have to interpret the code.
to make a comfortable, a decision that's already making us uncomfortable.
It's a clunky argument, that's right. You'd have to say that the incorporation by reference saying that the building inspector has to apply the fire code and building permit. And that provision being in the zoning chapter 21263, thereby functionally makes it makes the fire rule, a zoning rule, because the building inspector is told to apply it in the zoning code. And that gives you jurisdiction over it. That would be the logic. It is a little bit, taking a little bit extra steps, but obviously I was presumptuous in writing it as a negative, but now you can take that over.
but also to understand if let's say. On the flip side, if we said, well, we do have this authority, then we're opening that. For everybody, because you're any type of, not just for a situation, but any type of
Because
ruling made related to building or fire code by the code enforcement officer can come before us and we.
well, then, because what you're saying is that you're interpreting the village code to essentially be fairly clear in giving you that authority, and that logic applies to anything, but there may be some case where somebody's gonna come in and say to you guys, I'm appealing to this, they don't have the right weight bearing thing.
Right.
And you guys say, whoa, this is, you actually at that point, you say, please take it to the state, we don't want to deal with this. And that would obviously be a thorny issue, because now you've said that you can do it and come in and you have to back up and say, and I don't even know, under what circumstances you could, but clearly that would be a prudential thing. You get the right architect or engineer to figure out what the weight bearing beam is structured right.
I want their decision.
Face back and
Correct.
I think it's fair that the decision is ultimately made by the people who have experience making the decision. For us to like read like a line that says, oh, maybe you can have say in it.
Well,
When there are-
because the building inspector has to do this, the question is, and because that is in the zoning chapter, whether that functionally makes it a zoning law, and the appellant's been arguing, you know, basically, the appellant has actually been citing that paragraph over and over and over
Right.
again, but for a different purpose. The purpose of he's mentioned it almost every time he's spoken and he's written and everything, and the purpose why he's mentioned it is because he's been trying to say, if you remember, I have a right to contest the building permit, and this is what, you know, and that right is independent of what Corey decided a year and a half ago on whether the zoning use is appropriate to go to the planning board. This is a building permit issue, and this tells what you do in a building permit, and I have a right to appeal the building permit. The way I see it, that's why he's been citing this so much, and we basically said, no, because the fact that that particular decision, which is on the family thing, was decided by Corey a year and a half ago.
Right.
You don't actually have that right. So he's been citing this section all the time, but now we're applying it in a different context. Now the context we're applying it in is, does that section make a fire issue into a zoning issue for your review?
Alright,
All right, so are we ready to vote on this?
So we should make a motion so it's clear.
You're voting on just that one
We're
section,
gonna vote on all three of them.
of rate for
we didn't vote to accept them.
We didn't vote to accept them, so I think the least functional way to do this is to vote. Well, now that we've seen them, we can vote on them.
Yeah, you can vote, that's right. You can vote to accept the writing for 1 and 3, and for number 2, you can vote on the issue, and if you accept the writing as well, you can vote that all.
So we should initially do a vote on 2 issue and then we can accept.
I would
all
think
three
it's a good
if
idea.
That's the way to.
Accept the writing for 1 and 3 if you do accept it, and then for number 2, you can vote on it and then accept that as well.
Right, so if we do 2 first, we can vote to accept the writing on 1, 2, and 3. All
That's what I would suggest.
Okay, so I put a motion. I put a motion to accept the writing of motion 2.
Well, what Mike is suggesting is that you vote on the issue of number 2 first.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Oh, sorry.
He just said.
Motion, okay, so we're gonna vote on number 2. We'll go Corey.
Have a second?
Ian second.
Yeah, okay.
And to be clear to everybody, this vote is to not accept jurisdiction over a fire code issue.
Yes,
Right, but I'm accepting,
That, no, the writing's gonna come in the next motion. Right now, it's just, do you want to sit and appeal of a fire code issue
okay,
under the village
I don't
code?
know how to phrase.
Make a motion that we decline to sit in the hearing or to make judgment on any uniform code determinations made by the
So then,
code enforcement officer.
so then I,
you second it.
so second, yeah.
Okay.
Now we can go.
Yeah, so I,
Everybody in favor? Okay, it's 4-0 in favor of declining jurisdiction. Basically saying that the code does not give you jurisdiction over the fire.
okay,
All right,
So now we've got full writing in front of you.
so now we're gonna vote for, can we do them all one through?
Yeah, we're gonna vote on the decision as presented.
accept the written decision.
So we're going to, I put forth a motion to accept the written decision that our lawyer just gave us. Motion.
Second.
Okay, vote. Or not? Okay,
And I apologize to the board for trying to get it wrong.
no, it's fine. It was, it's okay. All right, so, is there anything else left? I think that's it, right?
That's all on the
Yeah,
agenda.
we're all done, okay.
And then for the suspension, once the planning board makes a decision on the site plan, I'll notify this
Right,
board.
because that is suspended.
Well, then the question would become, the real question would come in if there's an application for a new building permit, and then Alex goes through that. The site plan approval will be formed out, the next step would be the application for the building permit, which would formally need. And hopefully, whatever the complaint was about the previous processing of the building permit, hopefully Alex will, you know, not sure the odds are dotted, the T's are crossed, that it has it. Yes, it won't be.
I-
That would be, appellant will have satisfaction that's being done.
Okay. So, we're going to close the meeting. Second. Vote. Meeting is closed. That's it, we're done.
We're sending it to about 8 o'clock and.
In a long time.